Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking a truly fascinating geopolitical puzzle. We're looking at a newly proposed landmark nuclear agreement between the United States and Saudi Arabia. Now, if you've been following the shifting dynamics in the Middle East, you know for a fact that energy and diplomacy are completely inextricably linked. Well, we have some fresh details to unpack from recent announcements regarding the terms of this deal, and the implications here are just massive. We're talking ripple effects across international alliances, domestic politics, and the entire global energy market.
So, here's the billion-dollar question. What exactly happens when nuclear energy meets Middle East geopolitics? Let's dive right into this. We're going to jump straight into the raw facts of this incredibly complex geopolitical maneuver. And look, we aren't here to take sides today. We're simply looking at the framework of what's actually been proposed, the major players involved, and the immense stakes attached to the whole thing. But to really grasp the gravity of this potential agreement, we first have to understand exactly what is on the table.
Section 1. The proposed nuclear deal. Right off the bat, let's define the core of this proposed agreement. We are talking about civil nuclear capabilities. The stated terms specify that this pertains strictly to non-military use. According to the recent details revealed by the former president, there will be zero enrichment of material made between the U.S. Department of Energy and Saudi Arabia for military purposes. It is strictly about building energy infrastructure. Actually, this is essentially the exact same kind of non-military nuclear program that countries like the United Arab Emirates currently possess.
Now here's a number that really jumps out at you, 30. We're essentially looking at a proposed 30-year contract. This is a multi-decade commitment where American companies would secure the absolute major role in developing this overseas nuclear infrastructure. They'd literally be the ones building the Saudi reactors. And you know, a 30-year timeline means this isn't just some quick transaction, right? It's a deep, long-term strategic and economic entanglement between the two nations.
But why is the United States so eager to jump into this? Well, think about the alternatives. On one hand, you have U.S.-built nuclear infrastructure, which automatically comes with American contracts and strict American safeguards. On the other hand, well, as analysts are quick to point out, if the United States doesn't step in to build this, global competitors like Russia and China are more than happy to help Saudi Arabia develop their nuclear energy instead. So the strategic calculation here is pretty straightforward. America wants the contract and the oversight rather than just ceding all that regional influence to Russia or China.
Section 2. The Abraham Accords condition.
Now, we get to the absolute core of the whole thing, the condition. This entire nuclear arrangement is totally subject to Saudi Arabia joining the Abraham Accords. For those of you following regional diplomacy, you already know the Abraham Accords represent a highly significant coalition between the United States, Gulf Arab countries, other Arab nations, and Israel. For this nuclear deal to even move forward, Saudi Arabia must make peace with Israel and officially recognize it by joining this coalition. It's a massive, massive geopolitical trade-off.
However, actually getting to that signature has faced some pretty tumultuous delays. According to the reporting we're reviewing, there was really no doubt that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was initially heading straight into the Abraham Accords. It was viewed largely as a lucrative economic deal, but things have been incredibly tumultuous since the January 7th attacks. The regional landscape shifted dramatically overnight, and Saudi Arabia has since stated point-blank that they will not sign off on the accords until there's some resolve with the Palestinian situation. So the diplomatic wheels were turning, but recent events have definitely forced a pause.
Section 3. The enrichment dilemma.
Okay, let's look at the global landscape of uranium enrichment based on how the sources categorize these capabilities. It really helps to see who is doing what. First, you have countries that have the capability to enrich, but currently choose not to. The source lists Brazil, Argentina, Belgium, Iran, and Japan in this category. Then you have countries like the UAE, who have nuclear energy but enrich the material outside their borders. And finally, you have the recognized nuclear powers, France, England, Russia, China, who just enrich it themselves. This context is absolutely vital for understanding what Saudi Arabia is actually asking for.
So where exactly does Saudi Arabia want to sit at this table? Well, the reporting indicates we're getting somewhat of a mixed play. Unlike the UAE, which tells the international community they'll just enrich outside and bring the fuel back, Saudi Arabia has a very different stance. Their position is essentially, we'd like to enrich it ourselves domestically, but we promise we won't bring it up to weapons grade. They want that domestic capability, which, as you might guess, naturally raises a lot of eyebrows among proliferation experts.
To understand exactly why domestic enrichment makes people so nervous, let's look at this fantastic salad spinner analogy used by former Deputy National Security Advisor K.T. McFarland.
A nuclear centrifuge works a lot like a salad spinner in your kitchen. If you put uranium in and spin it just a little bit, say to about 3%, you get low-enriched uranium, which is perfect for civil energy. But if you just keep spinning that exact same salad spinner a little bit more, you eventually get highly enriched weapons-grade uranium. The underlying machinery is literally exactly the same, it's just a matter of how much you spin it.
And that brings us to the massive catch. Even if the current Saudi leadership promises to only spin the salad spinner a little bit, we have to remember leadership can change over a 30-year contract. The inherent danger being fiercely debated is the hypothetical scenario where a future, perhaps more hostile leader comes into power, decides to kick all the Americans out of the facilities, and simply chooses to keep spinning. Suddenly, what was perfectly fine as a civil energy program becomes a very, very fast sprint toward a nuclear weapon.
Section 4. The Global Chess Match.
From the American perspective, this all boils down to two things: control and visibility. Take this quote from K.T. McFarland. If we do it under our terms, that means we can monitor every step of the way to make sure it's not a nuclear weapons facility. The core argument here is that nuclear energy itself isn't a bad thing, but nuclear weapons obviously are. By being the ones who build and monitor the facilities, the United States can theoretically ensure strict oversight, control that salad spinner, and prevent unchecked nuclear proliferation in the region. All right, let's flip the board. What about Saudi Arabia? Why do they want this 30-year deal so badly? First, Saudi Arabia is actively trying to reinvent itself as a modern, high-tech power. They want to move beyond just being a petroleum-based economy. To achieve that kind of massive transition, you need an equally massive amount of energy. Second, they're looking at the long-term geopolitical landscape, including what analysts describe as a seemingly slow breakup of OPEC, with major players like Iraq and the UAE potentially heading out the door. They absolutely need reliable domestic energy security for the future they're trying to build.
Section 5. Next steps for Congress.
So, where do we go from here? Well, Congress is going to receive this proposal, and they have to review and sign off on the whole thing. We can absolutely expect an intense debate, particularly regarding safeguards. Some assert that standard IAEA protocol safeguards might not automatically apply to this specific arrangement, so Congress will likely debate whether to force those protocols to be a mandatory part of the deal. While some political experts believe Congress will ultimately approve it, if they were to try and override a potential presidential veto on the matter, they'd need a really steep two-thirds majority. There is a whole lot of legislative maneuvering ahead.
Which leaves us with the ultimate provocative question: is controlling the salad spinner really worth the geopolitical gamble? We have a 30-year deal that promises deep economic ties and normalizes relations with Israel, but it also places advanced nuclear technology right into a historically volatile region. It's an incredibly delicate balance of risks, rewards, and high-stakes diplomacy. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this helps structure the complexities of the U.S.-Saudi nuclear proposal for you. Keep an eye on this space, because this story is for sure far from over.